In this video, I'll give you the top 3 2024 storylines that are not talked about enough in 2024 fantasy leagues. I'm Jim Coventry of RotoWire. The first storyline that's not being talked about enough is the Cardinals have a potential juggernaut on offense. Kyler Murray's the quarterback. And Kyler Murray has done some amazing things in his short career. Very good as a runner, very good at buying time and throwing downfield. Kyler Murray spent a lot of his career coached by Cliff Kingsbury, who was very predictable, made very few in-game adjustments, and really didn't help his young quarterback. Now, Kyler Murray, yes, he suffered an ACL injury in 2022, which cost him the end of that season. It cost him the first half of the 2023 season. It was the same injury. It was one injury. He had been fairly durable early in his career. The first couple of years, Kyler Murray very rarely missed time. In his third year, he did have a shoulder injury. But for the most part, that ACL injury is one can't really be avoided. So that said, Kyler Murray is a full year removed. He doesn't have Cliff Kingsbury as his coach anymore. Drew Petzing, and last year Murray did play with Petzing, and that helps. Petzing showed to be an excellent offensive coordinator, very good with his formational usage, getting players open, mixing up the run and the pass strategically, taking advantage of box counts. The offensive line was not a disaster in Arizona as it had been in past years. It was serviceable enough. And the running game, James Conner, in terms of efficiency, career year from Conner. So there's a running game. The offensive line's not terrible. Petzing's a solid coach. Who does Kyler Murray have to throw the ball to? Marvin Harrison gets drafted at the top of the first round of the NFL draft. Michael Wilson, actually, 5 of his first 8 games, he was over 50 yards when that was a combination of Clayton Tune and Joshua Dobbs. Then Michael Wilson had an injury. He came back late in the season. First couple games didn't do anything, clearly wasn't healthy. The last couple games with Murray, Wilson was back to about 60 yards per game. So Wilson proved he can play. And then Trey McBride, the tight end, who had a great season after Zach Ertz was the starter for kind of like 5 or 6 weeks. McBride took off after that. So 3 legitimate good receivers. James Conner had his 2 big receiving games of the year with Kyler Murray. All that said, the defense in Arizona projects to be bad yet again. So this offense could be very explosive with good level of playmakers and a playmaking quarterback who is healthy. The next storyline that is not being talked about enough is Arthur Smith has a perfect roster for what he wants to do now that he's in Pittsburgh. Last year with the Falcons, Arthur Smith ran an incredible 80% of heavy personnel packages. That meant either 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, 2 running backs on the field. The next closest team was 60%. The number 4 team in the league ran heavy personnel less than 40% of the time. So Arthur Smith, again, 80% of the plays. So the Steelers have not had a very good offensive line. Last year, just not good. They invested in it. First round draft pick, second round draft pick, fourth round draft pick. Brought back a couple of holdovers. This line may take a little time to gel, but this line has potential to be good enough. Now, quarterback. Arthur Smith was in Atlanta. Desmond Ridder, Taylor Heineke. There's not much you can do with those quarterbacks. Now, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, they may not be world beaters, but that's a massive upgrade over Ridder and Heineke from the Atlanta days. So Arthur Smith will have competent quarterback play. And what we know from Arthur Smith, back in the days with Tennessee when Ryan Tannehill was his quarterback, we know he likes to use the run game and the play action and then throw those quick slants, downfield shots. Wilson and Fields are capable of making those throws. This works very well. And then talk about a receiver, George Pickens. Now, we know the number 1 target in the offenses of Arthur Smith don't often go much over 110 targets. That's typically the way it is. But when A.J. Brown was the top receiver for Arthur Smith, even though the targets were limited, Brown was weaponized very well and on a per-game basis, extremely productive. George Pickens is a perfect match for those slants, in-breaking plays off play action, even getting downfield. George Pickens may see a lot more targets than we think in this offense. It's not going to be through the roof like top of the league, but he could get into that stratosphere of 120, which would be big for an Arthur Smith receiver. Running backs, of course, Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren. two different stylistic running backs, strong fits for what Arthur Smith wants to do. And of course, that offense really is predicated around tight ends, blocking and receiving there. Pat Freiermuth should be the receiving tight end. Now, last year, we saw Jonnu Smith have a career year, put up good numbers for a good long period of time. Kyle Pitts was used way downfield on deep passes too much from bad quarterbacks. That was never going to work. They don't have that type of tight end here. So Freiermuth should be a traditional receiving tight end. Darnell Washington should block. Connor Hayward, probably a little more of a receiver than a blocker, but Michael Pruitt comes over from Atlanta, knows that system well. So they're going to have those heavy personnel sets. So for Arthur Smith, this offense is in line to be much, much better than what we saw in Atlanta last year. Now, the offensive line, they are going to have to get those young players to gel a bit. They're going to need 2 out of the 3 of them to hit at least somewhat decently, and there is risk there. But otherwise, this Arthur Smith offense is going underrated because of what people saw last year in Atlanta. That should not be the case in Pittsburgh. If you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, check out all of our fantasy football content and rankings by getting a free 2-day trial. No credit card needed. Just go to rotowire.com/Jim to see all of our content. The last storyline that's not being talked about enough is the Chiefs will return to their pre-2022 form on offense. So since Tyreek Hill left, Kansas City's had a difficult time stressing opposing safeties. We know a lot of teams play those 2 high safeties. They want Mahomes to win underneath 15-play drives, hoping for a holding call, a drop pass, or something so the Chiefs have to punt. The inability to stress defenses deep allowed opposing defenses to cycle one of those safeties down and get more people to load up the middle of the field, put extra attention on Travis Kelce. Well, in the offseason, the Chiefs were masterful. First, they had Marquise Brown. Marquise Brown is an extremely explosive, fast receiver who has a full arsenal of ability to beat defenses in more than just a deep threat. He can win a lot of ways. And then Xavier Worthy ran an incredible 40 time and 165 pounds, slight guy, but you don't need him to be a heavy volume guy. You need to run him downfield to make those safeties scale back so there's more room underneath. But the Brown and Worthy additions do just that. Patrick Mahomes averaged a career low 7 yards per attempt last year. This year, with safeties likely having to stay honest, there's going to be so much room in the intermediate area of the field for Mahomes. And remember, when plays break down, Mahomes is the best in the business at buying time and looking deep. And he has 2 weapons who can do that. Marquise Brown has been masterful also at finding abilities to break off a play and get vertical, and of course, Worthy speed. Kelce should again have more room to operate. The running game should have extra room before contact. This is going to be an offense we could see those pinball numbers from the Chiefs that we haven't seen in a bit of a while.